All right, well, I'm going to get going. So, welcome to everybody, people who have been with us for a very long time, and people who are new, and people who are in the middle. Just nice to see you all. Um, for anybody who's really new, I'm Lisa Herrick, and I founded 31st Street. I think most of you know that. So, this afternoon, I'm going to do something a little different than what I usually do. I usually just come up with some sort of inspirational something or other to get our meetings going. But I just have been feeling so particularly beaten down, not by the polls, not by the idea that, we're in trouble, but more by everything that this administration is doing. And the Trump arch is actually underway in Memorial Circle on the Virginia side. And for some reason, that just has put me over the edge. I mean, the ballroom just makes me crazy. But for some reason, the arch and the idea that we really are going to be pre-war Berlin, I just can't really stand it. So one of the things I wanted just to do, just a couple of minutes today, is to check in with anybody who's here, everybody who's here, to just see how people are feeling in terms of being part of this community and how being part of the community, not what we're doing, not our, support for candidates or our work with social media, not our strategy, but I just would love to hear from people in the chat, just a few words. You don't even have to write a sentence. Like, how are you using the belonging to this community to get through this period, this era? Like, what about belonging to 31st Street is helping you? And if you don't really belong yet, like, what's your hope? What's your hope about how belonging to this community can be helpful to you? And while you're putting those notes in the chat, I want to remind everybody or tell people who haven't been reading my newsletter that we have an in-person picnic on June 28th. And that is such an important part of what we do. We do in-person events twice a year. And even though they're only twice a year, I think they're incredibly important because in person, everybody really feels that they really are part of a community and we're not just boxes on a screen. And we're actually people and we actually care about each other. And it's really wonderful to see people in person. So for those of you in other parts of the country, I really wish you could come. You probably can't. But for those of you who can come, I really hope you do, because right now, I just feel like we really need each other. And we kind of like, if we were in person, if we were back in 2019 and meeting in person in various people's living rooms, like I think we would constantly be hugging each other because we're all drowning in the terrible things that this administration and Supreme Court is doing. So please come to the picnic. And if you could just help around the edges and be a volunteer, could you put that in the chat too? We don't need a lot of help, but I would love a little bit of more help. And so if anybody wants to volunteer to help me with the picnic, that would be awesome. So let me just read what people are putting in so far. I do need more hugs. Yeah. I love 31st Street does the work and figuring out how to maximize our impact. I do too. I mean, Erin was just talking in our new member orientation about how it's such a relief to be able to ignore all the spam, the political spam that comes into your phone by saying, I don't even need to look at that. I can just delete it because I'm already doing something. It's so relieving. Sam says it's reassuring to see fellow citizens putting their shoulders to the yoke and fighting to save our democracy. It is. It makes you hopeful. By belonging, it allows me to learn and take some concrete steps to feel like I'm hopefully doing something that will make a difference. I mean, I think that's the road to sanity, seriously. Incredibly grateful for everyone. Knowing that people are actively fighting this administration helps me get through every day. Looking forward to the picnic, seeing many of you in person. 31st Street has saved my life since 2017. Not sure how I would have survived without it. Totally agree. So anybody else who wants to put in, yeah, It's strategic, it's brave, it's hopeful, it's successful. Chris says, counting on 31st Street to help focus me and my friends and neighbors in protecting the midterms. I feel like 31st has been the best strategy during this confusing time. Sorry that you'll miss the picnic. So feel free to put any other thoughts in there. I will read them and everybody else can read them through the program. But I have to say, I I feel like 31st Street, and this is really not bragging because it's not me. We have 18 people on our leadership team now, and this group functions now like a well-oiled machine. Like the delegation is complete, everybody has their thing that they do. I have a very small role at this point, which I'm fine with because I trust everybody who's doing everything else. But it feels like a really good combination of a grassroots group that has managed to be effective, like statistically. We've have a lot of wins in our pocket over the years and some losses, but you got to have some losses if you take risks. But we've had a lot of wins, so I know we're effective. I'm just not hopeful about it. I know it. And the community is amazing. The people in this group are amazing. They're incredibly dedicated and generous. And when we go canvassing together, I remember it all over again. So I just want to really kind of bring us together in a Zoom hug today because, man, I really need it. These are hard times, but thank goodness we know that we're doing something. So today we are going to once again focus on Iowa. We've been focusing on Iowa and we've been doing a variety of things in Iowa. And today we're going to hear from Liz Fleming and Patrick Reinard about what is happening on the ground in Iowa and what kinds of things we've been supporting in terms of social media action. So they will fill us in. But first we're going to hear from Jim and I will turn it over to him right now.
Right. So clearly I appreciate this is my professional life now. And I will show you, I'm pretty optimistic when I look at the political side of it, which is, I can look with two different eyes. I can see what's happening in the country, but I look at the political side and I think things are going very well for us. So in fact, that's going to be my first slide, if I can get it up here in a minute. So, here we go. All the reasons for major optimism. And I'm not going to read them all, but I'm going to show a couple of data slides about it. I'm sort of going to set the foundation for what is actually Iowa Day, and talk a little bit about how we're going in there to set up for our experts, Liz and Pat. So in a way, the biggest thing is the polling, and I'm going to show that, but it's all the key groups are going with us. Young people, people of color, rural people, are all coming to the fold, and a lot of it is inflation because people are ticked, and that there's evidence of that in lots of different ways. So I'm not going to take the time to go through all this, but it's I will say that we have great candidates, we're better organized, and so forth. So how are we approaching things these days? We feel like our comparative advantage is to kind of focus on a few key states for, key reasons and then drill down within the state, and Iowa certainly falls into that category. Acting early. We started thinking about Iowa last summer, but it's still early. And we have particular approaches that we like to do, including on the ground groups and social media and so forth. But state legislatures right now are the focus. The timing is right, particularly right for state legislatures. We're strategically positioning for a blue wave, which is not something that everybody is particularly doing. And I think it's going to be a big blue wave. And you can overdo it or you can underdo it. And I think most groups have been under positioning. And so we've been pushing out on what I call the leading edge. And I think so far that's working really well. And we do our homework and we find great partners to work with both nationally and at the state level. All right, so this is what lifts my spirits every day because every day Trump's polling gets worse. This is Elliot Morris, who does a good sort of synthesis of the polling out there. And it's only going to get worse, folks. Um, the Strait of Hormuz is not going to open up anytime soon. And even if it did, it would, there's so much of a reverberation from that um, through the economy and so forth. And of course, the name of the game for us is translating that into these Republican enablers who are not, who are still supporting Trump and holding them accountable in campaigns. This is one slide on intensity, one of a number that I've seen in sort of recent weeks. Notice that 54% of people who say they're going to vote Democratic say that the midterms are much more important than the Republicans. And let's hope a bunch of Republicans just stay home. Um, so they do have a big advantage, though. And you know what that is. Primarily, it's money. They're going to have a huge amount of money. And that's one reason we have to step up. But I call it big, dumb, mostly late money. They're starting to come in, actually, with some of it. But a lot of it's going to be mass television that people get sick of and so forth. Whereas we're going to do smart, early, strategic money. A little bit of metaphor. It's a little bit between the difference between cruise missiles and drones. I don't know if that metaphor works for anybody, but I kind of like it. Okay, so that's what we try to do. So let me reflect a bit about what we have done in North Carolina. So we have had a set of 10 leading edge legislature candidates, and we went out not on a limb, but on the edge, on the leading edge of that. And so how did we do? Well, thanks to you, we had a goal of $150,000 for 10 candidates. And here's what we raised, $161,000. So what did we do with that other $11,000? Well, we didn't just sort of spread it around. We actually found another candidate, an 11th candidate that we think has a really good shot. He may not win, but he's got a good shot in Western North Carolina. So now we have a slightly better leading edge in North Carolina. Now, speaking of North Carolina, this is a recent poll from a reputable polling company. It drives home the point. North Carolina is very similar to the national data on this. It's inflation. It's the cost of living that's really got people ticked, especially those lower income, unfortunately, voters, lower information voters, young voters that we need to vote for us. It looks like economy and jobs is second. So this is really these issues are what's really driving it, but it's more people just being, fed up. And they're seeing that Trump is weak. And hopefully, again, carry over to the enablers. So a little bit of data from that same poll, which is looking very good in North Carolina. Roy Cooper running for the Senate plus 11, sorry, which is a little bit higher than I've seen in other polls. Supreme Court, very important in North Carolina. Also Democrat plus 5. But here's the piece de resistance, if you will. Preference for the North Carolina legislature, D plus 7. So I just want to reflect on that. That is huge. That is far better. I'm reasonably concerned that we've had in North Carolina in recent years. And it really is really what I would say is that it really supports. Now, some of this was luck, but some of it was prescience, that we had the prescience to get out on that limb because we really are in the sweet spot for the North Carolina legislature with those 11 candidates. And we just might flip the North Carolina House, which nobody has thought was possible to do. And of course, it helps up ballot as well. So now switching to Iowa Day, we're doing something very similar in Iowa. It's not the same, not the same situation and so forth, but some of it's the same, that we have a leading edge set of House candidates, in this case, 12. And the support that we're doing in that you is a little different. Instead of being just general digital, this is very hands-on digital social media support that Pat and Liz are going to so, describe. And this is a similar situation that again, we're going for the gold. There's 100 House seats in Iowa. And oops, we have our candidates. And if everything works well, even not everything has to work the same well, we could still get to a 51 seat majority if ever. And I think it's a little larger, higher, harder reach in Iowa, honestly, but it's still possible. If you factor in incumbents, primary races, and better positioned candidates, we could get to the it's a nice aspirational thing. And actually, some of these primary races, which are we'll know in what 2.5 weeks or something, there may be a couple more that we're going to try to support. So, any case, any substantial gains will help bigly in any case. But a lot of the reason we're doing this is because it's a Super Bowl election. We have all these up ballot candidates that they're going to describe. And these people's main thing that they're going to try to do, and we're going to try to help them do, in addition to the social media, which is very local, is door knocking and having them going out and knock doors to try to turn out the Democrats. That's going to help us a lot up ballot, in my opinion. So what are we going for? This time it's $140,000. We're using Oath again instead of Act Blue. The donation link's going to be in the chat. But this is for my sister Mary. We're going to have our fundraiser on June 11th. And I know she would dearly love and dearly appreciate if you would be an ambassador. Some of you already have said you would be. So please contact her. And I imagine she'll put her email in the chat if you don't have it already. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our great expert and colleagues, Pat and Liz.
All right. Hey, everybody. It's great to see you all again and talk to the 31st Street group. I think I've mentioned it several times, but we have really very much enjoyed working with you all, and the strategy that you have has been great and very smart and is working well out here. So I think I've met most of you, but let me just redo an intro. I'm Pat Reinert. I've been in Iowa for about 23 years. Worked on Democratic campaigns for about a decade, largely on state legislative races. So this part works in really well. And then I founded Iowa Starting Line about 12 years ago, and so did a lot of like social first, like creative, progressive journalism stuff. Liz.
And my name's Liz Fleming. I post online as Liz from Iowa and have for the past 6 years or so. And that has connected me to a lot of wonderful Iowans across the state who want to do good work or are doing good work. And with Pat, I'm able to amplify a lot of those people. A lot of those people decided to run for office too. So this program is excellent for getting them to create more and better content that actually reaches their intended audiences.
All right, so let's look through the whole Iowa field of play here. As I think many of you know, there are a lot of very encouraging signs for Democrats out here this year, and especially it's very much needed after having a full decade of just very depressing results time and time again. The one year that we did have some good stuff in 2018 and won three of the congressionals, we promptly lost two of them and then most everything else right after. But obviously, first we started out with these big special election margin swings. Five of them being over 20-point swings, starting out with that ST35 was the Mike Zimmer, the 01 was Caitlin Dray. So a lot of really encouraging swings. Now, those are special election ones where the turnout is a little bit lower, so people take it with a grain of salt, but it's still a great indication of enthusiasm and everything. Then when it comes to Rob Sand, there's two major polls that I'll be talking about that came out in the last 2 months throughout this, and two of them showed Sand up quite a bit. And I'll tell you, for the past year, Democrats in the state, I would say, have been cautiously optimistic about Sand's prospects, but we've gotten burned a lot in past cycles where we were hopeful. After some of this recent polling and just seeing how everything has played out, I would say that most of the Democrats in the state are now feeling cautiously confident about Rob Sand, and having that strong top of ticket is going to be very helpful.
In addition to Rob Sand being a really excellent candidate, the Republicans have a really bad record. So Kim Reynolds is the current governor. She is not running for reelection, not very popular. Beyond that, Iowa ranks 50th in the nation for economic growth. We have the fastest growing cancer rate, second in the nation overall, a $1.4 billion deficit. We're not doing so hot in most of the economic factors either, and we're losing manufacturing jobs, which are very pivotal to our communities. On top of that, attacking education, a school voucher program has taken foot in our state, and people really don't appreciate that and don't like that, and it's affecting our public schools, which is not cool.
So, does that mean we are looking for a blue wave in Iowa? Is this what Iowans are going to look like as they head out to the polls? I enjoy using this photo as often as possible. A lot of people in Iowa politics Twitter do. Because if we do, it'll be great because it's, as Jim said, it's the Super Bowl of elections here in Iowa this year, where we have an open U.S. Senate seat, which we don't often. We have three congressional districts that are swing and currently held by Republicans. So you could pick up a net of three Democratic seats out of Iowa alone. Obviously, the open governor seat, and then the entire statewide ticket. And again, having such a strong top of ticket is really going to be a game changer in the state compared to some of our last cycles. And then, of course, all the legislative seats. All right, so let's go through real briefly here each of the races.
Yeah, so taking a look at the governor's race, Rob Sand is the sole Democrat running. The Republicans still need to figure themselves out in the primary, which is kind of looking like a hot mess. Randy Feenstra was supposed to be the presumptive nominee. He got a lot of endorsements early on, but there are a couple folks like Adam Steen and Zach Lane that are still vying for that seat as well. So we'll see what they decide on June 2nd.
I think it's still likely that Feenstra is the nominee, but like he has to get 35% to avoid a convention. I think he'll get that. If not, it gets a little messy, but I also don't think the other candidates are all that strong either. They just haven't had as much attention. Feenstra is just a terrible candidate if that hasn't come through yet. So looking at the rankings, Cook has a toss up. I'm sure that likely are a crystal ball will change here very soon. Hotline has it as the most likely to flip. And again, there's the polling numbers, and I'm also including in these the betting markets, which I don't love, but they do exist. And you can see there the conventional wisdom has definitely shifted to people believing that Rob Sand is much more likely to win.
Then we move on to the U.S. Senate. We have two really great Democrats running in the primary. We will find out the winner of that on June 2nd as well. It's looking like Turek, but you never know until things actually happen. But Josh Turek is an excellent candidate, Paralympian. He was elected in a district that Trump won by 14 points, was it, Pat? Like something similar.
Yeah.
He's from Western Iowa, where Democrats rarely get elected, but he is a strong and promising candidate. Zach Walz is also very popular. He would be seen as more of the progressive candidate in this race, but they are both vying for the seat and will likely go against Ashley Hinson. Ashley Hinson is very establishment. She is your typical Fox News Republican in a state that somehow likes Fox News Republicans.
Yeah, so she won't be easy to beat, but she is, I think, beatable in a good year. So, still most places have this as a likely Republican. Recent polling, I just include the ones in here. Walls was like 1%, I think, better or worse. I forget which. So it's very similar with both of them. Turek has had tons and tons of ad spending on his behalf from vote vets, which makes us think that he's likely going to be the winner in the primary. But again, there, as you can see in the betting markets, Henson is not running away with the thing. So there you go.
Which takes us to U.S. Congress, Iowa's first district. Christina Bohannon is having another run at it. She's run a few times now. This is going to be the year this district flips. Marionette Miller Meeks has been the incumbent. She is not very popular. There are lots of clips of her online that have gone viral of her dismissing constituents or generally doing something nasty or dorky. There is a primary for the Dems. It's very likely Christina Bohannon, though, that walks away with it. And this is the district, just for geographical context.
Southeast Iowa, Iowa City, and then a lot of blue collar places along the Mississippi. This one's rated as a toss-up. Unless something really bad happens, like most people here think this is by far the likeliest to flip, and that likely will. There hasn't been polling on the individual congressionals as of late, and like the generic congressional ballot statewide is 45-49 from one of those. Which if you broke that out by district, because the fourth district's so heavily Republican, that's really good news for Democrats and the others. But it's also a reminder that while Rob Sand is so popular, and Donald Trump's popularity is starting to slip, it's not like a runaway situation for the Democrats. This is still, traditionally a red state over the last decade, and it's still going to be a tough fight.
Iowa's second congressional district, which nobody really saw coming until Joni Ernst dropped out, or didn't drop out, but decided not to run. So Ashley Hinson, who currently represents this district, is now running for Senate, which leaves it open. We have Joe Mitchell, who's a Republican who recently moved to the district, doesn't have a lot of roots in the area, but does have a lot of money. Versus likely Lindsey James. She is a minister from Dubuque, Iowa, my hometown. I gotta love her. She is a really excellent candidate and had a recent ad that went out that was, I think, exactly the tone that someone like her should be taking. There's also an independent candidate here. We'll see how that splits up the vote. Yeah.
And this one, folks right now have it as likely are, but the second district I think is going to be the biggest one to watch one of the biggest ones to watch in the whole country over the next couple months, especially after the Virginia redistricting laws. Democrats are going to be needing to look to other places to find a couple more pickups, and this is likely going to be one of their best shots. And as you can see, the bid market is already starting to move around a little bit. There has been a lot of various interest in this district behind the scenes, from a lot of national orgs that are starting to lay the groundwork there. Also, in part because the first and third district is going to get so much interest that they kind of see this as a good sneaky pickup. And again, like Joe Mitchell has a lot of negatives on him that have yet to come out, so it should be interesting.
Iowa's third district, which is where I am now. Currently, Zach Nunn is our congressman. He's kind of similar to Marionette Miller Meeks, where he's not that popular. He wanted to run for governor, but Trump kind of tapped him down and was like, no, please stay in your seat. So we'll see how Zach fares. But Sarah Trone Garriott, another minister, a Lutheran minister who is stepping up to run for Congress. Big fan of Sarah. This is the district that we're looking at here, this area. It includes Des Moines and all of Polk County, and then goes south central with it.
And again, toss up. People think it definitely leans towards Trone Garriott, but Zach Nunn can be a resilient candidate at times.
And then Iowa's fourth congressional district. This Western Iowa is a very tricky place. They all love Donald Trump still, but we'll see if any of that is breaking. There is a few Democrats who are running who are trying their very best, and I think they're pretty strong candidates. But on the right, you have Chris McGowan, who was endorsed by Donald Trump. So we'll see how much that endorsement matters and see how the general goes. This is the district. It's a big one.
Then I'll zip quickly here through the rest of the statewides, which are kind of interesting on their own right, especially here in the Attorney General's race. People think that this is the other race that would be most likely to flip, even though Brenna Byrd is very well connected, has lots of money raising capabilities. But Nate Willems, who I've known a long time, I knocked a bunch of doors with him on his state Senate race way back in the day. Is a really good labor attorney, has raised a bunch of money. Daga is really interested in this race, and Byrd has did a lot of very unpopular things early on in her term, like going after rape victims and trying to make it harder for them to get restitution on some things. And interestingly, here there's a poll that had them that close, and I was surprised when I checked to see the betting markets have it like Willems in this one. Then the rest of these, Secretary of State, when it comes to Republican Secretary of States, he's not that bad. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins. But again, if it's a good blue year, you could see Democrats sweep a lot of these. State treasurer race will be pretty under the radar. State auditor as well. Knoyer's the current lieutenant governor, which should give her a little bit of help. But because Republicans did so much to undermine Sand's authority as auditor, that could help out Taylor. Secretary Ag's kind of interesting. Chris Jones is a big water quality guy and has really taken on agribusiness. So that can make that kind of interesting. But I would expect Nag to probably win this unless it's a really good year. State Senate broke the supermajority there. There's not a ton of great pickup seats on the map, but in the House there is. And they've got Republicans have a super majority there, but that should be easily breakable, and then we'll see going forward. Okay. Now, on to our Iowa House races that we're running our program on here with a dozen candidates. Again, when y'all asked, what would be a good way to try and help out as many as possible, so we tried to come up with the most efficient use of funds for as many candidates as possible. And so these folks are kind of like, as Jim said, on a leading edge or kind of on the bubble when it comes to will they get full party support, because these are all offensive targets. About two or three, I'd say three of them are pretty likely pickups. And then the rest, it has to be a decent year or they just need to run really, really good campaigns. So we've been talking with all these folks. If you go to the next one. Again, there you can see where they're kind of spread out. A lot there in central Iowa, both in Des Moines Metro, and then in a lot of these like mid-sized towns of like Marshall towns, like 30,000 people, Newton, 25, 30,000 people. Those kind of towns, I forget exactly what the term is, but those are the kind of towns that have a lot of blue collar workers that Democrats have lost in recent years that they used to hold. And so those are really good right pickup opportunities if things start to come back. Liz, you want to do this one?
So, over the course of our program, we will be teaching them social media skills. There's 12 of these candidates. We will have weekly meetings. We'll try some organic online voter reach, which would look like making some video content, putting it out there, having a little bit of paid social function behind that. So putting a little money behind it and targeting their districts that they live in. And then, of course, pushing some fundraising advertisements. It would be really wonderful if these folks could efficiently raise money through these posts. But what we will be teaching them throughout the course will be video editing. So how to use the program CapCut to make compelling video content. Graphics creation. If anybody's a fan of Canva, I totally am. We'll be doing some Canva teaching there to make quick graphics. it depends how quick you are, really, but hopefully quick graphics to get out on the internet for people to see. Face to camera video best practices. We like to talk about the intro hook, which is the first few seconds of a video. If you can make that impactful and make people want to stick around for the rest of your video, that is a very good thing. You want people to listen to the rest of what you have to say. But beyond that, we'll be talking strategy with them, posting on Facebook, Instagram, talking about online fundraising ideas and building their online brand and audience, which I think will be a game changer here.
Yeah, and a big focus of this is just making it as easy as possible for them to produce a lot of content for free to keep just tossing out on their social pages that will be well targeted to spread organically in their district. Because a lot of them are doing door knocking well or getting out to events and that kind of thing really well. But it's just so easy to just post a couple things a day or even once a day that then will have a chance of getting in front of people every single day. I'm especially looking forward to like going through some graphic creation ideas with them of like how can you just sit down for one day and come out with like 50 posts, bank up 50 posts of different graphics and quote cards, and things that you believe real easily, so that then you can schedule that out and have something pop up in people's feeds as often as possible. Then with that, organic is great, but it doesn't always get in front of everyone who you want to. So the other part of this is a paid program part where we have where what you raise will go to $9,000 for each targeted candidate, where they will boost the nice videos and graphics that they make. So instead of them having to have like a full consulting team or a producer come out and shoot really, in-depth video ads for them, which sometimes the more, not as polished stuff it can be more authentic these days anyway. So, make it easier for them to make that and then put in ads behind that on Facebook and Instagram, maybe others, but probably just those. And then again, with kind of the thought process of this group, which I share, getting out the earlier the better. Start boosting those in June, maybe mid-June or late June, we'll see. So that it starts to get out in front of voters before the massive inundation of ads that is definitely coming to Iowa voters this year from all over the place. And then finally, I'll just, I just like to make a point, which I think you kind of agree with, but I'll make it anyway. Again, there's going to be so much spending in Iowa this year to just on the Senate side. You can see there, the Democratic Super PAC has already reserved 13.5 million. The Senate Republicans 29 million for which will be largely TV ads, if not all TV ads. So, like all these various paid channels are going to get swamped here. So, like, how do you break through? How do you be effective? And I think one of the most effective ways is with organic social media, which all these folks can do. I mean, not completely for free because it takes time, right? And time's money, and training them up takes some as well. But I think that is the unique advantage that we can help deliver for Democrats in the state this year. That again, I don't see the Republicans doing much of, or at least not in any kind of coordinated or strategic manner. And I think it's a really great opportunity to have a strategic structural advantage over the right in the state in a way that money can't, like big money anyway, can't buy it back. So there you go. Thank you. And again, as we've said every time, Liz and I are having a lot of fun with this. So we also appreciate your support just so that we have a good time.
Thank you so much. That was great. Lots of wonderful information. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
questions for you. So Aaron is going to go through those.
Yes. Hi, I'm Aaron Hamburger. I do membership here at 31st Street, and also I curate our questions for our Q&A. So I will just lob those at you. So first question, this in that very red district that likes Trump still, how do you know how they explain that? Are they not hurting financially? Did they blame Democrats for high gas prices? What is the deal here? And this is generally my question for all over the United States Trump country.
Yeah,
So
no, I
yeah.
feel that. The fourth district has just traditionally been very conservative. It's a very rural, it's a very agricultural one. One of the problems that Democrats do still have in the state, that even with the tariffs hurting everybody so badly, is that especially in some of these very rural areas and small towns, being a Republican is just the culture. Like that is the culture of these places, and that part is really hard to overcome. And so even though I think like Democrats' best opportunities in Iowa is in a lot of the blue collar working class towns, in having even higher turnout in the cities and doing even better in the suburbs. But there is a limit to where I don't think you're going to see as big as swings back in the very rural counties.
Okay, great. Um, Another question for you, Pat. When you say that the Secretary of State is not that bad, does that mean that he is unlikely to support any Trumpy efforts to overturn the Iowa elections should they go a way that they don't like?
Yeah. I don't think he'd go so far as to like try and overturn stuff. He has bowed to pressure every now and then, and like recently this year, like he sent like the data or whatever up to the federal government, which you're not supposed to do. But like he came around far before all the MAGA stuff and is usually decent to work with, and has pushed back on some of it. So it's like, I mean, would it still be better to have a Democrat? Yes, for sure. But that's kind of where that stands.
Great, thank you so much. Liz, maybe you can talk a little bit about are you providing content recommendations as well as like training on Canva? And if so, what are some of the themes?
Yeah. So some of the content recommendations that Pat and I were talking about the other day, in the same vein as it would be awesome if these people could log into Canva and create just a bunch of graphics that they can have going out on their social media on a regular basis. That would look like a map of their district. Something as simple as identifying, do you live in my district? Here's where the district is. If you are, great. I'd love to represent you. Simple things like having an endorsement or a quote about the candidate, ideally something positive that they have from someone that they know. Things like that, pulling clips or anything from things that they have done, adding graphics to them, putting out general information about the primary election or the general election, uh, little uh, fun photos from the past. Maybe there's a 4th of July photo of them as a kid that they want to share. Maybe there's a meme or a trending idea for content that we can get them on. But a variety of evergreen material would be good. So that can go out whenever, but then also being on the ball. So if there is something that can be created that's timely, they're able to do that.
Yeah, and we want to try and do like a decent amount of nostalgia bait, especially in some of these districts where it's mostly older voters of like, what did you do? What did your parents do for work? Did they work at one of the local factories or one of the local businesses? And kind of be like, things weren't the way they used to be, and why is that? Well, let's get into it, that kind of stuff.
Right. All right. Another question for either of you or both of you. Can you describe the importance of the issue of water, this was in quotes, in Iowa?
Yeah, Liz, why don't you take that?
Everyone is talking about water quality. At first, when the concerns started getting greater because of the massive amount of nitrates that we have in our rivers, streams, at first I was like, is this just a me issue? Like, is it just my circle that cares about this? But hearing from candidates who are out knocking doors in all parts of this state, everyone is bringing up the water quality issue. Everyone's bringing up cancer. Those two go hand in hand and are getting more and more attention as time goes on. I think, especially with candidates like Chris Jones, who's running for the Secretary of Agriculture, who is a water quality expert, more and more people are learning more about the current state of things and caring about the current state of things and worrying, unfortunately. So it's a very important issue.
Yeah, and it's one that's really broken beyond just the partisan labels on it in a way I don't think I've seen anything else in Iowa in a while.
Great. Another question. How does the social media reach non-voters or voters outside the echo chamber?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's some strategic stuff that we're really looking forward to going over with them. Because yes, sometimes you do see Democratic candidates just kind of posting a bunch of like liberal stuff, and it's probably just getting to the activists or the liberal activists beyond their district. Now, sometimes that can be useful if you want to use it for fundraising, so it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's such a powerful tool to reach folks in your district. So. I think again, one like just like having lots of photos of you out in the district, talking about the different towns, not saying, "Hey, HD 50," like that doesn't, saying like, "Hey, the Marshalltown district," or something like that. And just like, every time you go to a restaurant for lunch, snap a quick photo of that. That's what like Grassley and Rob Sand do a lot. And then just try to localize some of the issues as much as possible. But again, that's one of the best parts of some of these social media platforms is that they do geolocating really well if you lean into it and you know halfway what to do with it. That it typically does a very good job of delivering local posts to local people or voters. And even better is that there is typically not a ton of local content being made out there. I doubt there are that many people on TikTok talking about Clinton, Iowa. So if the candidate starts talking about Clinton, Iowa, then, there you go.
Exactly that, Pat. People like to see themselves represented online. So whenever I hear Iowa mentioned in a movie, my ears perk up and I'm like, oh, I need to pay attention to this. So having those little signals in video content specifically can be really effective in reaching people in those locations.
Mhm.
Good. Another question was, who will the Iowa candidates be targeting? Is it Democrats? Is it independents? Is it even Republicans who may have become disenchanted with the party and Trump?
It'll likely be some mesh of what they determine to be swing voters, persuadable voters. I think most of the ads that we'll end up doing will be persuasion.
Hmm. Another question, just coming back to content. Uh, I think the person wanted to follow up. What about substantive policy content? What are examples of local posts that are policy oriented, not just pictures of them at the diner, for example?
Yeah, well, I think any good social media feed has a mix of things. Some people will only want to interact with your content about Casey's Pizza. Some people are really looking for that substantive content. Sometimes you got to get people with the Casey's Pizza first to get them to the policy conversation. So, in a situation like that, it could be as simple as someone posting from the gas pump. Taking a video of the price of their gas as they're sitting there recording. It sounds a bit cheesy. It feels a bit cheesy sometimes to be setting up your phone and recording you doing everyday things, but truly that's what people are looking for. They're looking for a real person doing the things that they do, uh, suffering over the cost of groceries, gas as they do. So I think there's a real pathway to talk about policy issues through the everyday things,
Mhm.
whether it's healthcare, prices, tariffs, the ag economy, what have you. There's lots of opportunities to kind of tie it all together.
And the House Democrats caucus wants them all to like develop like their top three issues. So I think that will be going on concurrently, and then we can, work that into this where they can try and come up with like 10 different posts to talk about water quality, to talk about wages, which also then is helpful so that they don't end up doing a lot of reactive stuff where they're just reacting to whatever pops up in the news, which sometimes Republicans force issues into the news that makes, Democrats seem out of touch. So I think, getting a couple set policies to build a lot of content off of will be important.
Yeah, I think as Democrats, we have this tendency to think if we can just present like a rational argument and lay out like policy for voters, then they'll just come to understand our side. And like if they would just read the New York Times editorials all the time, like then they would get it. And I think that actually is like why we are so perceived as being so out of touch because we're trying to not appeal to voters through Casey's Pizza, and lead them, to issues that are their concerns rather than just kind of have a rational like high school debate with them, which I just think is like not has not worked before. So why would it work in the future?
Yeah.
Um, One more question was about education. Do any of the candidates we're talking about, have specific ideas they are pushing about education and how Democrats could change that situation?
Absolutely, they are. So, education is a huge thing in Iowa. We used to be revered as some of the best in the nation for education, especially our public schools were very strong and our teachers were very supported. That has changed rapidly over the past 10 or so years. And as we talk about nostalgia and tapping into people's past remembrances, hopefully that's something that we can remind them of how strong we used to be and how Republican attacks on education have really lessened the strength that we have in our public schools and really the optimism that people have for the system as a whole. So Republicans have done a few things to really tick people off in the state, especially teachers and people who have family members who are teachers, which is pretty much everybody. But attacking teachers, calling them villains, saying that they have an agenda, not a good look. There's also the school voucher program that they push through, which doesn't have any accountability behind it. That message is really breaking through. Beyond that, Pat, anything to add? I think there's a perfect storm of people who are ticked
Yeah.
off about what they've done to our education.
Yeah, the easiest message that I think you'll see the most from folks is that the voucher program is unaccountable. They don't have to accept everybody. There's no transparency. So you'll see a lot of that, including some of like, hey, we need to rein it back in as well. And in some of these, in some of these districts, there isn't a private school. There's not private schools in every single county. And so, like, for a lot of these folks, some of the messaging is like, this is just to help out. Like, it just goes to money for, well-off families living in the suburbs to be able to send their kids to the private schools there. Not that those are bad or anything, but that's a bit of the perception.
Great. Well, thank you so much for answering these questions in a really informative and dynamic presentation. Let's all give a big virtual hand to our guests.
Thanks.
And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Lisa.
And I'm going to say thank you again. That was really interesting. I really like the answers about how the content is connected to sort of day-to-day living. I can think of so many amusing examples of what they could do. I would love to be an
Ask them
influencer.
our way. Just kidding. We'll have a
I would.
served session.
That's my dream job. So we are finished with our formal program, and thank you so much for joining us. We'll stay on for a few minutes if people have just a few more comments or questions or just want to say hello one more time. But for those of you who want to move on with your day, thanks for coming. And thank you again to Patrick and Liz.
So I'm going to go ahead and jump in to kind of get the conversation because I got a question from Victoria, and that's something I meant to say something in my presentation about the gerrymandering, which Simon Rosenberg thinks at the moment it's about R+6, maybe 7. That's sort of assuming that, all the Texas races go against us, which they won't necessarily. You can call me an optimist, but as I look at all these districts across that especially in the states, I see us picking up 2 or 3 in Iowa, 3 or 4 in Pennsylvania, and so forth. 2 in Virginia, that we have a really good shot. So I think we will definitely win the House. I think we could we could have a sweep if a lot of them go our way. And so, some of the organizations are starting to move more into the sort of leading edge, as I call it. And I'm really happy to see that because there are candidates that have a good shot if you notice the slides that Patrick, you see you see a district that the Cook report has likely R, and the odds people are saying that we're more likely to win it. Call me optimistic, but we got to do the work, of course. But I think we have a good shot at the Senate also. And Dre agrees with me.
do. I agree with you
And I
completely.
agree with you.
We will. We do.
And thanks to everybody for the $8,000. That's really putting us, we're over a third of the way there, by the way, thanks to the ongoing fundraising efforts. But we still got a long way to go. And when we have cash up front like that, they can start doing the work. So that it's helpful to have the money even before the fundraiser.
Any other comments, questions? You can just raise your hand or just say, speak out. Meg?
So, what kind of help is the DNC giving to these state candidates? And what do
So
we know about what they're doing in Iowa?
So it's the DLCC. So
Right.
it's not, I don't really, I don't actually know. I think they are weighing in. The problem is there's a bunch of states where legislatures where we can flip. So we have a much actually better shot to flip in Wisconsin, both
Mhm.
houses, Arizona, both houses, Maine, even in the House. So they are weighing in, my understanding. The other big actor is the States Project, which every time I get a chance, I promote people giving money to the States Project also. They are great collaborators. We interact with them and they give us sort of intelligence as to what they're thinking. I think I've they have limited resources also, of course, but I've been trying to get them to push more into this leading age in some of these places, and they're pretty responsive. So I don't know if that answers your question, Meg. That's as much as I know.
One thing I was going to add to Jim, because I've been interviewing these people along with Jim, many of them do not have campaign managers. I think they're hoping after the primaries, a group will give them, but they are really working on varying budgets of trying to get started, and their feet are on the ground, talking to people. It's very basic for some of the candidates.
Yeah,
So this will be a big help. The training and the money will be a huge help.
exactly. We probably should have described this a little better. These are small districts because Iowa used to have a bigger population, and they're only like 30,000, 31,000 population in these districts. And these are districts that have, we used to win, now we've lost them, and there are some that are pretty good, well-seasoned candidates, I'll say. A lot of them are very green, but they're working hard. And so this is exactly what we like to do. We like to drill down and find people where, a little bit of help can actually move them along.
Well,
Any other comments,
that's it.
questions?
No, good to go.
Appreciate the help.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for all your donations. Wonderful. And hope to see you in June at the fundraiser.
Yeah. Different people speaking. It'll be
Yeah,
great.
different people speaking. Yeah. All right. Good night.
Okay, goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.